You ask a random person to describe a leader and you get roughly the same picture. A perfect hero who has their life together, always knows the right answer, feels confident all the time, and has full control of the situation. A fatherly or motherly figure who's followed without question and is admired by everyone. But real life leaders are not like that. Leadership is a role that demands a certain mindset and certain set of skills that makes others want to follow you, trust you, follow your instructions. And it doesn't mean that you become an extraordinary superhuman and hero, but it means that you need to develop new ways of thinking, communicating, managing yourself, and that you can create more impact. In this video, I'm going to share about 3 common challenges among middle managers, 3 specific situations, real life situations from my own clients that I've seen behind the scenes of their careers and business and everything. But these are situations that most managers assume they can never change. And it is what it is. And just don't do anything about it and suffer. I just want to show you that with the right support, the situation is often more manageable than you think. A promotion to leadership role is the greatest success you can expect in your professional life. You got your dream job, you're happy, you're excited. But then there is this feeling that many experience a month or a few weeks into the new leadership role when the reality settles and no one likes to talk about it. And it is when you suddenly feel you did not deserve this promotion or you got yourself into the wrong job, that you're not ready for this stretch. You're not as smart as you presented yourself in the interview process, that you're a fraud and a mistake in the hiring process. Maybe they missed something and then they hired you. And you feel some shame around this. You worry that if they find out, so you start to work longer hours to make sure you understand every business case so deeply or whatever problem you have to address. You micromanage, and you're thinking maybe with more control, you can cover up for all the shortcomings. You lose sleep, anxiety kicks in. And this is commonly known as imposter syndrome. This is not about confidence. This is like a normal emotional state so many people experience when they achieve the next level of success they have not experienced before, and they do not feel safe with it. The mind is not used to that level of success, has never experienced it before. And it is the most normal and common thing, but most individuals do not feel comfortable or safe to talk about it. There is some shame around it. So they have to hide it. And I understand this is something I commonly hear from women. Women are struggling with this even more. And it's more talked about. But I also wanted to share about my male clients. Actually, one of the cases I'm going to bring up today is a male client of mine who works in a similar industry I used to work in before. And he was head of marketing. So this is about Daniel. Daniel used to be a senior product manager, and he had recently become head of marketing in the corporation he was working for. And this was something he always had in his career plan. It was like something he had worked towards. He wanted it, and he's done everything right. And when we started working together, I was surprised because I also kind of knew him before he becomes my client. And I was wondering what was the issue, because at that point, everyone I was working with was struggling with not getting promoted, not getting the job they want. And Daniel, he had been promoted to his dream job that seemed like the perfect fit for him. And he seemed like the perfect person for that job. So then Daniel shared that a few weeks in the new position, he was learning about the real reasons his predecessors had left this job. And he was burnt out, that other guy. He was learning about the challenges and realities of this role, and this was making him realize maybe this was a big mistake. He was thinking he's not politically savvy enough to deal with some of these challenges. He was intimidated by the senior managers now, and he had to work, the ones he had to work with and their behaviors. And he was not very much, or he felt like he's not like them. And when he came to me, he was convinced that he should leave this company before having to put up with the embarrassment of quitting right after a promotion. So he was so sure about quitting. And in coaching, it became clear that he's actually a great fit for this job. He has the skills. He had built emotional assumptions and the stories around what was going on around him. Daniel is one of those individuals who are far too smart and too logical to be given things like affirmations and journaling and motivational talk, just telling them, hey, you're good enough. That doesn't work. What we did with Daniel was that we did an audit, an assessment of his competence and his strengths to get a realistic picture of where he has evidence of competence, where it's very clear that he's good at what he's supposed to do, and where are the gaps specifically for this role and this challenge. Then we brainstorm solutions to address each gap. Is it support internally? Is it like relationships he needs to build with people who could help him and mentor him inside the organization? Is it that he needs a training on a specific technical topic that he needs to build up skills? We created a clear strategy to navigate the first 90 days of focusing on the key priorities of this sensitive phase. And I really recommend everybody, even if they don't feel imposter syndrome, that when you get into a new role, get some kind of new manager coaching and what they call it transition coaching. There are specific ways of coaching that are designed for the first 90 days in a job, because it's a very sensitive period that you could make or break a lot of things. So this plan and this awareness around his competence and the gaps, this picture made Daniel feel more grounded. And from there, slowly he developed his own leadership philosophy, his identity as a leader, the skills that role needs, and the relationships and support around him. He actually stayed in that job and he was very happy. He did not rush his escape plan. And this was only possible because he had the courage to be vulnerable enough and share about something he was so deeply embarrassed about in the coaching session. Brené Brown says, you name the shame and take it out of the darkness and it loses its power. And that is what happened here. It was really because of his courage that all of this process happened. Situation 2 is about an overwhelmed manager in survival mode. The second case is also from another client who came from supply chain management, like most of my cases. And her situation is so common in this sector. There are always a lot of tasks to deal with, a lot of competing priorities. This was the case with Laura, who was working in the beauty industry for a big name skincare brand. And Laura was a very busy manager with far too much work, volatile demand, competitive environment, and constant pressure was not even allowing her to believe she can relax. And she was a very organized person already. She was already used to delegating. But when everyone in the team is already overloaded, when you're low on resources and every person has like their plate full, you cannot just delegate. So in order to find space in her calendar, she had to be creative, identifying priorities differently and building a task management strategy that protected her and her time. That's what we worked together. We also explore her identity around work and her mindset around performance and hard work, and created some routines to regulate her nervous system and some habit change around managing boundaries. She already had very good boundaries. She created some ways of measuring capacity and communicating it to her team. So when they are pushed in to just do things, they can at least move the priorities and manage expectations. And very often when people feel overwhelmed and overloaded, it is because they have a lot of invisible mental load, leaking the energy in ways that are not measured. And Laura acted as an investigator to identify these leaks. She audited her. And when something is measured, then you can control it. She already had the knowledge, the confidence, and the skills of a leader. She just needed a space to think clearly, reflect, and prepare for her career so she can make better decisions without constantly needing to rush around. So we created enough empty spaces in her calendar for thinking, space she always assumed does not exist, a space for reflection and her own leadership development. A concept she was also going to introduce to her team because they needed that space too. space she was committed to protect. Times in the calendar, like that she would close her office door and not have any meetings. And once that space existed, she could work on her career topics, her future, without compromising her performance. And this allowed her to move forward. She was able to get promoted, get that dream job that she was thinking of. Of course, credit to her. She did the real work. You see, all she needed was just some time to think and reflect, and creating that time needed a bit of creativity. And by the way, I have a free guide about creating time and space to grow, where I share some practical ideas for overwhelmed managers in survival mode, like Laura. If you want to create that space and finally breathe, check that description and access that free bond. Situation 3 is about leading a reorganization while recovering from sick leave. That was like a very interesting case for me. Very different from any other client because of the specific challenge they were going through. My client here was a marketing executive and business consultant. He was in the United States in this case, and he was returning to work after a long sick leave. It was already physically challenging for him because of what has happened to him. He was a confident manager in terms of leadership and experience, but he was not confident about his physical health and if he could sustain those long days. So he was slowly rebuilding his physical strength, getting back to work full time. And at the same time, his company hit a serious challenge. There was a reorganization. He had to lay off team members right when he was back. And there were also other challenges happening that he had to deal with. So he knew who he was as a leader and what his values were. And he was an experienced manager. I did not need to teach him anything. He was way more experienced than I was. But the situation was complex and he needed to think clearly. And coaching is perfect for such situations. What coaching gave him was the space to see himself differently, to redefine his philosophy as a human, as a leader, and to feel grounded while doing something very difficult in a very chaotic environment. Coachability, the quality that decides how far you grow. All of these cases I shared had one thing in common. Leaders are not superheroes. They are normal humans who decide to show up for the role of a leader. It's a role. So they're willing to work with what they have, keep an open mind, and have the courage to see their blind spots. Being coachable, being able to receive feedback, decides how far a person can expand. And it is not that I can read minds and do magic. In all of these situations, it was through the openness of these clients that I was able to ask the right questions. They would answer and would learn more about the situation. They would be able to see the situation they were in more objectively. And they could also separate themselves from the situation and look at it from a different angle. So we could investigate what is really going on. And as coach, sometimes I just hold the mirror in front of them to see themselves better, see what I can see, and that potential, ambition, life force, and dedication for change. And it's also about holding the clients accountable in effective ways. So if the situations I talked about are similar to what you are struggling with, I invite you to ask yourself, where are you treating your challenges as evidence that you're not good enough? Where in your week is the space to think, and what is it costing you if there is none? Because without the space to grow, there is no growth. Sounds obvious and simple, but most people ignore that. They think like they have to be in this hamster wheel and then somehow a miracle will happen. No, the miracle won't happen. You have to make space for growth. And also I would invite you to ask yourself, when did you last get feedback you did not want to hear? And what did you do with it? How did it make you feel? And of course, if you want to explore your own unique challenges as a manager or a leader, I invite you to book a call with me and let's talk about whether I can help you or not. I put a link in the description. And in the next video, I explain what happens inside coaching sessions, if that's something you're curious about. What goes on behind the scenes of coaching sessions, if you're curious what happens in coaching and how it can help you. Because coaching is actually not right for everyone. It really works it needs a certain level of readiness. And a lot of people don't really know what it is about. So in the next video, I'm going to share about it. See you soon.